Mexico's president ruled out allowing U.S. strikes on cartels within Mexico's borders. Joining us to discuss is Taylor Hathorn, visiting fellow at the Independent Women's Forum Center for American Safety and Security. So Taylor, good afternoon. Good to see you again. Now, U.S. officials are saying cartels pose a threat to national security, and President Trump said he's okay with military strikes inside Mexico. But it looks like Mexican President Sheinbaum says she's not accepting any intervention by a foreign government. So firstly, I want to ask you, what do you make of Mexico's resistance to U.S. strikes on cartels, which, are killing both Mexican and American citizens?
Well, it's painfully obvious that the cartel situation and the fentanyl crisis that Mexico is involved in is really embarrassing for Mexico. And it is harmful for the United States and it's harmful for Mexico. So it doesn't surprise me that the Mexican president doesn't want the United States coming in and fixing their mess and having Donald Trump fix their mess that they've created.
So if the U.S. were to have some kind of involvement, what would you want to see in terms of the U.S. taking down these cartels?
I think what every American needs to ask themselves is if this was ISIS or Al Qaeda killing tens of thousands of Americans every year, how would we expect our administration and our leadership to engage with this and engage with these cartels? There's a reason that the president and Secretary Rubio designated these these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations back in February. Now we do have diplomatic relations with Mexico in ways that we don't with other foreign terrorist organizations, but Mexico is doing a little bit to curtail this cartel problem, but they're really not doing enough. And President Trump is having a really serious look at what this means for the United States.
So you said the U.S. is not doing enough. Can you then comment on why these cartels are such a threat to U.S. national security? They have a degree of control over Mexican law enforcement, right? Politics as well, businesses, and significant financial influence over governments as well. So just comment on that.
Well, 90% of the fentanyl that comes to the United States comes through the southern border. And so the drug crisis alone is bad enough. But we've also got the disastrous immigration that has happened over the last 4 years under the Biden administration that is finally being cleaned up. And so you see the tentacles of the cartel in every single one of these areas. And these policies have been disastrous. These consequences have been disastrous to Americans. And now the Trump administration is working diligently to clean it up. The Mexican president has sent 10,000 Mexican National Guard troops to their border. They recently gave us custody of 55 drug traffickers in Mexico to the United States. So some things are being done, but it really isn't enough. I mean, it doesn't equate to the damages that have been incurred against Americans. And many Americans don't know, but we send $100+ million a year through either the UN and through Mexico itself to help curtail this. So American taxpayers are paying for these drugs essentially to come in through these borders because Mexico isn't doing enough with the money and the resources that we're giving them. So the cartel, both the Sinaloan and the Jalisco cartels, are extremely dangerous. They're working with China to get precursor chemicals for fentanyl shipped into Mexico so that the production can be done in Mexico and those drugs can be sent to the United States. So there are just so many levels of this that are harmful for Americans, and Americans need to be made aware of just how bad it is.
So then, can you go a bit deeper into that? You're saying that Americans need to be more aware of this. Can you paint us a picture here so that everyone is aware of the severity of the situation? What kind of dangers do these cartels pose?
So prior to 2019, China was actually the biggest trafficker of fentanyl into the United States, and now Mexico passed that. And that is because China really cracked down on the exporting of actual fentanyl and classified those drugs so that there could be more regulation on that. But what they haven't been able to crack down on, or in my opinion, even tried to crack down on, is the precursor chemicals that are being used to manufacture fentanyl in Mexico, which is being shipped from China. And many of those companies are being supported and stood up by the CCP and encouraged to be able to do that. And so when those precursor chemicals go through the oceans, through shipping containers, they get to Mexico. Mexico often has instructions that were given to them by China and by the CCP in how to manufacture this fentanyl. The fentanyl gets manufactured inside of Mexico. Mexico ships it up through the border. 96% of the seizures of fentanyl that happen at the southern border. So all of this happens, and that's just the actual drugs. You're not even talking about the human component, where thousands of Mexicans are killed, Americans are killed because of this drug trafficking that happens. And then you've got the human trafficking component, because all of these cartels also participate in human trafficking. So it's a major human rights violation. I think that the United Nations needs to be doing a lot more in regard to making sure that the Mexican government is held accountable for what they're allowing to take place inside of their country.
Okay, Taylor, just one final question here. And from what you're describing, it sounds like China and Mexico are working hand in hand in this whole situation. But, just a few days ago, China's, pardon me, China's Xi Jinping agreed to stem the export of precursor chemicals. Do you see this as a genuine cooperation on China's part, or just posturing? What leverage does the U.S. have to force China to stop fueling cartel operations?
Well, only time will tell with what happens with our diplomatic relationships with China. China is still pretty adamant that there's a difference between Beijing and the CCP, and that they will say that they're doing one thing, in reality, what is happening behind closed doors is very different. Only time will tell with that. I think in regards to our relationship with Mexico, we have really strong trade relationships with Mexico. They're our southern neighbor. We can't just disenfranchise and geographically separate from them. So we've got to figure out a way that we can work together and to try to combat this issue. And my opinion on all of this is, whether it's Mexico, whether it's China, whether it's any other nation, that these diplomatic relationships can be repaired, but these countries have to work with us to help fulfill what we are looking to fulfill as well, which is the safety and security of all Americans. And China and Mexico should want that for their citizens as well.
Well, okay, well said, Taylor. And I think everyone would agree that the U.S. and Mexico should work together on this. Thank you very much for speaking with us today.